Hi,
Hello,
Sean.
how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm actually a little tired right now. I did a virtual half marathon this morning, actually.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
hmm
Was it the Scotiabank Marathon?
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. How many miles did you do?
I
Or
did
kilometers?
a half marathon and miles. I'm still trying to figure out miles compared to a half like kilometers a night. So, from my understanding, miles is 13.1, which is 21.1 kilometers.
Oh, that's awesome. I
hmm
don't know why I asked miles because usually I'm used to kilometers too. But I see some people just joining in, and I just want to start by introducing you. First, just a disclaimer. So I want to add some resources in the chat. So today's Real Talk will be for autism awareness in Canada for the month of October. And we're here and we're joined by Sean, who has been a speaker with YouthSpeak for about 8 years and counting now.
hmm Yep,
So,
I have the program.
yeah, so, um, and right now, I also want to give a special shout out to the TD Bank Group for supporting our online programming. And I will be putting in some resources in the chat for those of you that may be struggling and may need to connect to more resources. So I will add that in. But now, first of all, I just want to, for those of you who may not know what autism is, it is something that affects individuals with their various skills and their sensory perceptions, and for especially social skills. So it may be more challenging at times. And today we'll be talking about Asperger's syndrome in specific. And
hmm
I want to ask you, Sean, how would you describe Asperger's syndrome with your own experiences?
So a lot of it through my own experiences. It may not look like it now, um, but there are a lot of times I still go through the odd social anxiety here and there. So how that affects me personally, it affects me with how I talk to people, how I act, how I try to understand other people, um, and then some and certain social cues that will come with that, as well as I'll even give one liners, as well as like sometimes be like, yeah, okay, sure. And also, along with what you're just saying there about the sensory issues, was it?
Yeah.
Um, so before, I'm fine with it now, actually. So when I was growing up, actually, I had a huge fear of thunderstorms. And what I would do in reaction was I will roll up in a fetal position movement. I'll break out in hives, rashes, make myself even throw up a lot. And then uh, a couple of months later, I found out that this is actually before I was diagnosed with Asperger's. That that first stage was actually anxiety.
Wow, that's crazy to believe that at 13 months old that you
Mm-hmm.
experience these physical reactions with anxiety inside, and the way that you reacted to thunderstorms, even just how you broke out in hives. So your body reacted with what you were feeling at
Mm-hmm.
such an early age.
But that fear is long gone. I love thunderstorms now.
I I was gonna ask how you react to thunderstorms now. That's great. And when did you realize, or when did your parents realize, was that the first time that they realized that something might have been different?
I have to really think back here for a quick sec. It was more like it was more like going through a bit of a behavior change, actually. they've noticed, and same thing with my teachers, that my social skills were poor. Um, Same with my writing skills as well. Um, I would have a hard time socializing with other people. I would dislike any routine that my teacher would make, uh, not ever. And one thing that really helped me a lot, actually, too, was, I don't know if it was like another thing. I'll be obsessed with talking about one subject. So my big thing was dinosaurs. So Jurassic Park, still my go-to movie.
I love that. Which one is your favorite?
You gotta go with the originals.
Same here. I was
Yeah.
gonna say I like that they're remaking it because I can't have enough of Jurassic Park, but definitely the old ones.
Mm.
I think we have a comment in the, let's see. So, what are some tips for parents with kids on the spectrum, and how can we relate and help them?
That's a good question.
So, yeah.
What are some tips?
So that's a really great question, and it's something that a lot of people, it's a common question
Hmm.
that, come across. Do you want to go ahead on that, or do you want me to?
Um, my best kids in the spectrum. Say if they're newly diagnosed, um, support really, because some may not. Some that are, like I said, that are newly diagnosed may not have a full understanding of what they really live with. Um, Support, doing your research as well as another huge tip as well, and even spreading uh, awareness as well.
Yeah, that's really great. I think research, support, so educating yourself, I would definitely say that as well. I used to actually work with children with autism and a couple years ago, and one of the biggest things that parents were asking is, how can we help at home? And I think I
Mm-hmm.
would also like reiterate what you said is just the patience and understanding, being
Mm-hmm.
able to let them know that you understand them, but not the typical way, but finding ways to help them express themselves without just kind of showing a frustrated reaction,
Mm-hmm.
which, mhm.
Frustrated
Yeah,
or even an aggressive reaction as well.
yeah, definitely. Like words like no or getting upset,
Mm-hmm.
it can be tough. And I want to ask about some of your experiences in school. You mentioned that you had social anxiety.
Mm.
Could you just elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so let's quickly elaborate the best that I can, actually. So it's like how I'm going back to being really shy and always quiet. Um, it was actually due to the fact that I was being bullied a lot too, right? So that actually came to a huge part of my social anxiety. It's because when somebody found out that I lived with Asperger's, um, I kind of took me as that target of, okay, Sean here lives with a disability. Let's start picking on him, and that would continue years and years and years, and I would just be afraid to meet people because I've always
Mm,
had that fear of, okay, if I go to somebody's house, and I can admit I still kind of have that fear here and there too. Let's say if I were to go to somebody's house, for example, I would get that expression of, okay, are they gonna like me? Small things like that.
mhm,
Really hyperventilating a lot, stuff like that as well.
mhm. Wow, that's really difficult. I can imagine how even if like the social interactions were already difficult, but having an instance like bullying, it can just add so much to that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I can see how that social anxiety developed and just added more and more challenges in that. What are some ways, or were there any coping tools you used for your social anxiety?
So way back when I wasn't really, uh, um, so way back when we're still trying to find certain support systems that really helped me out a lot. And what really came through to me big time was not only mindfulness training, but also breathing exercises, and also a non-for-profit organization called Community Living, who assists individuals who have intellectual disabilities. So what I mean by that is, besides assisting individuals who live with autism, but also Down syndrome, just to name a few, and they'll do like social groups, day camps, small things like that, and that actually really helped me a lot, because I remember actually I was involved in a day camp, and we even did a huge road trip one day to Peterborough just to get away.
Mm, yeah, that's really awesome. Having these organizations, so much these supportive communities around can make such a big difference in finding those people that through like bullying experiences, it's like having such an experience where you're kind of not wanting to interact with people, and then that could really turn it around, having these supportive communities. So that's really awesome. And in school, so going back to just your school,
Mhm.
how was it like for you just with everyday school, with learning? Were there any challenges you faced with just doing the routine classroom settings?
So I can't admit, like, the routine thing, I still I'm a little 50-50 with here and there. So I'm one of those people that needs a reasoning, right? So thankfully I've had pretty good teachers, whether it be in um, public school to high school, who really helped me out, guiding me through. And say if I was volunteering in the cafeteria in high school, for example, and the school chef said, "Hey, Sean, I want you to do this with this reasoning," I have a better understanding that way too. So yeah, definitely pretty good, and a lot of them are really supportive.
That's really awesome to hear. And those little things really do help a lot as well. And for schools, do you think that there's something that schools could do or teachers could do to help students more?
Um, More awareness. I saw a comment actually scrolling up here, talk it out a little more as well. Was another
Hmm.
one. What else? Um, do like even little education parent nights as well.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I when I was working, so I used to shadow teach in schools.
mm,
So I remember just in a lot of the schools I would go to, one was kind of giving the child attention and teaching them in a different way. So not the typical, because sometimes it's hard to sit in one place for such a long time.
mm-hmm,
And every person is so unique. So the child I was shadowing in school, I just remember he had so much energy every day, and the teachers just tried to force him to stay in his seat. And I was just like, but that's not going to help him learn. And with him, it was a lot of he was so smart, and he was so quick in math
mm-hmm,
that he would finish his work and he'd just start running around because he had so much energy. So yeah, so I definitely think like there are so many helpful teachers out there, but there's so much more that we can do in just making kind of shifting away from the box thinking of, this is how a classroom should be,
mm-hmm,
and then moving towards something that maybe this isn't the only way to learn.
mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And also, it's like what we were saying. earlier too about even educating yourself as well, and even knowing what you're probably are even going to get yourself into.
Yeah, definitely. Education is so key and understanding that. Um, and I wanted to ask you for, I know this question came up, but for a person that maybe gets newly diagnosed with autism,
Mm-hmm.
if you could give a piece of advice to them to just help them or something that would make it easier for them, what would that be?
It's like same thing if you were diagnosed, say, with depression or anxiety. It's one step at a time. There are awesome support systems out there for you, and like, yeah, and I can admit that there are certain waiting lists that can be um, a bit crucial for some parents, but in the end, it'll be all worth it, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. I love that piece of advice. I think for parents, it's the support group a part about it as well. It's so important to just find other people that can help you. Finding that supportive community again can make
Mm.
such a big difference. Yeah. Was there any one person or multiple people in your life that you can think of that gave you a piece of advice that made a difference in your life?
Oh wow. um, so I used to work at a those summer resort camps called Muskoka Woods, and it was actually when I first started with YouthSpeak, I was out having breakfast actually with the CEO of Muskoka Woods. Actually, his name was John McCauley, and one advice that he took that he told me with the speaking part of it, and even the founder for YouthSpeak said the same thing for me too. Una said that don't be afraid to take any risks.
That's a really great piece of advice, not taking risks, and that's awesome. I think there is one book I was reading about vulnerability and just being able to say yes. Have you heard of Brene Brown?
No.
So she does a bunch of TED Talks. So she talks about, being vulnerable, going out there and just taking risks. And you'll just see how much you get back from everything and how worthwhile that is in itself. And I want to also talk a little bit about just the current pandemic right now and how that's been affecting your mental health.
Comes and goes. To be honest with you, like I mean, like everybody, um, you will have a breakdown here and there because there's so much confusion and like the big part of. I mean, I'm not going to be too surprised that with all the mental, considering going back to the mental health part of it, that anxiety is going to probably top the list for this year, right? Um,
Hmm.
so lately, for me personally, it's been pretty good. For the, I guess we're what in the second round of this now.
Yeah.
But like for the first part of it is kind of like, okay, what's going on? Why is the movie theater closed, or why is Liz closed? Sort of deal, right?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's been happening for such a long time. I think we've all come to this point where we're just like, okay, we know the drill, but at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning it was definitely that adjustment of, going to the restaurant is such a big thing now. It's not possible anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like traveling, whereas traveling is almost seen like a dream right now. So a lot of different changes happening. And I can imagine with anxiety. I know for myself at the beginning of this pandemic, it took me such a long time to just accept
Hmm.
that I can't constantly think about what's going to happen in the future or
Mm.
when it's going to be over.
Well, actually, I don't know if it's gonna relate to this at all, but for the only time I'll actually will watch Discovery is Shark Week, and actually, they did a little special. And it's an episode with Will Smith actually really wanting to overcome his anxiety and fear of swimming with sharks, right? And there was one part of the episode that really stuck with me, and I guess it kind of really relates to what's even going on this year. Really, is that we're all entering into the unknown. Then that's kind of like the whole thing with anxiety, right? Is that right? It's
Mhm.
entering into the unknown.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. We have no idea what's to come. I think the biggest thing was news. I feel like you're constantly hearing about COVID everywhere, the quarantine pandemic, anywhere you go and talk to people. So it can be such an overload at times. I think a lot of us have just gone through a lot of exposure therapy where we've really had to kind of get used to it, but it definitely was a process. And I can't imagine for those that have also social anxiety
Mm,
as well. So forming new relationships in this new world is going to be such a strange thing.
yeah, it's entering into the new normal. I think they're calling it now, right?
Yeah, the new normal. Yeah, and I know that you've been working on a lot of different projects, and we've talked about it briefly, but I want to
Mm.
get into some of the current projects that you have been doing.
So actually, I'm on the board of directors for the Asperger's Society of Ontario,
That's awesome.
and one of the um, projects that I'm working on with them right now actually is creating a kind of like a social reach out support program to for those who are either newly diagnosed with Asperger's or autism, to people like myself who are still not really understanding what's going on, and kind of have a little a couple week workshop to kind of express themselves a little more and go through mindfulness tools and stuff like that.
Mhm. That sounds amazing, and I'm so glad that you are doing that because it's very much needed at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Making those connections once again, switching to online methods right now. So yeah, so I will definitely tune into that project because it
Mm.
sounds very exciting. And we have a question over here. So, Sean, do you find doing your marathons and CrossFit, I think it's supposed
Yeah.
to help deal with anxiety?
Without a doubt. Like, say if I'm upset about something or um, just feeling having a really low day, let's go for a run and go do a CrossFit class. I feel a whole lot better.
Wow, that's so amazing. And I didn't realize that you did CrossFit, and I was just about to ask that is fitness and exercising something that really helps you cope with anxiety?
Mm-hmm. Like for anybody's mental health, really.
I definitely agree. I think that's something that has helped me as well through this whole period. I used to go to the gym every day and do like exercise classes in groups, but now it's so hard to motivate yourself at home.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I think if you try like a little bit each day, you get more and more motivated.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, it's hard doing it at home because you're away from everybody. You're so used to having that social aspect with everybody, right?
hmm Now, I want to ask everyone, so if there are any questions, you can put it in the chat. And also, what are some ways that you've been forming friendships right now in quarantine? You can post it in the chat if you have any suggestions. What about you, Sean? Are there any ways that you're creating or forming new relationships uh, through this quarantine period?
Just reaching out to old friends, to just check in to see how they're doing. Just do like okay, just do like a scale of 1 to 10 sort of deal. How are you doing? One being not so good. 10, I'm fine. Sort of deal. Um, what else? I think that's been pretty much it. Just really doing like a check in to see how everybody's doing.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to make sure that everyone is kind of you're checking in on everyone and making sure they're okay. Because nowadays it can feel very disconnected at times.
Mm.
We have a question and some comments here. So the first question is, did you find you were able to deal with your anxiety when you meet others on the spectrum?
Not really, no, because I think it's pretty cool to meet another individual that's also lives with Asperger's. I actually at work right now. I'm actually working with a fella who's also on the Asperger spectrum as well. And how I kind of introduced myself, he was actually job shadowing me one day, and so I just openly said to him, "Hey, if I give you a weird look or what I may say may not sound too clear, my apologies. I do live with Asperger's." And he looked at me and goes, "Oh, really? I live with it too."
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm sure that was really great to for him as well to find that connection at work.
Mm-hmm.
hmm And we have another question. As a teacher, how can I encourage students with autism to socialize?
Wow, that's a good one.
hmm
Um, Encouragement. Just encourage your student to maybe go join them to play basketball, for example, or go join them for uh, a game of soccer. Get to know them, and even encourage them to let them know that, hey, I live with this condition. I might be a little slow at times.
I love that. That's a very great answer. So some sports like that. I also have a suggestion. One way that you'll notice what your students may like. So depending on their interests, you could see that maybe there's someone else in the class that shares the same interest. If they're super into puzzles uh, or a specific sport like basketball, then just making sure to make that connection happen and encouraging that as well.
Mm. Yeah, I was going to even add on like even um, anything art related as well.
Yes, art. That's a really great suggestion. Art is a amazing way right now. And there's another comment to go with that actually, which is especially during quarantine. So even if they are doing in-person interactions. So I would also ask, are there any ways you can think of for online interactions as a teacher to help students engage?
So I guess like something through Zoom uh, would be. Um, See, like that
Yeah, I
part.
would.
That part I'm not too sure about because I'm more familiar actually with in person stuff. But
Yeah,
for
we
me,
haven't gone to school with quarantines.
no.
So.
So my best suggestion is even if it's really needed, have a parent involved as well.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for that, Sean. That definitely could be a great help, and especially for, I think for Zoom calls, it's hard to get students engaged in general because they're sitting in front of a screen for hours and hours.
Hmm.
Um, but definitely finding creative ways, and I would also say, like for teachers, like finding digital ways to prompt them. So activities like uh, trivias that you can click
Yeah.
online. So I would say creative activities to do with your class to have everyone participate.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm. All right. Well, yeah, those were some really great questions there. And and thank you so much, Sean, for joining us today and just sharing all that information and all the resources that you have shared. I think, oh, sorry, I thought we had one more question. But yeah, and before you go, I just wanted to ask, what are some of your favorite things to do right now at home?
Um, Cooking.
Cooking. What is your favorite recipe to
um,
cook?
so like, I guess like I'll use an example if I'm getting ready for a marathon or whatever. Surprisingly, at first I looked at it and I was like, okay, this does not look easy. It turned out it was. I find smoothie bowls are pretty easy to make.
They look so good.
Hmm.
I'm always looking for new recipes. Cooking has definitely been one as well.
And also too, I just recently got back into taking pictures as well.
That's awesome. Do you like taking pictures of nature or is it portraits?
More nature related stuff.
Oh, well, right now would be the perfect time with the fall colors outside.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, that sounds amazing. And I also wanted to ask, how many marathons have you done? I can't believe you did a marathon in the morning and you're joining us tonight.
Um, so I've done five, maybe six 5Ks, 5 kilometers. Um, I want to say maybe about the same amount as for 10Ks. And actually, my first run was actually fundraising for the Asperger's Society of Ontario. And I've done, so this will be my seventh half marathon.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah,
And
great.
potentially, I mean, like some on here are going to say I'm a little crazy, but potentially the goal is to maybe do a full marathon.
That's amazing. I think you can definitely do it. You're already in it and going strong.
I'm probably going to be hurting for a bit, so.
I know. I think the first time I actually participated in a 10K was last year. My friend got injured and she broke her leg,
Mhm.
and she needed a guide. So I thought, okay, I'll enter as a guide, and I ended up pushing her wheelchair for 3 kilometers, and then we did the run. And I thought I would be like so tired, but there was just such an adrenaline after you finish.
Mhm.
It was, yeah, it definitely sucks you into the marathon world.
Which 10K?
I think we did the Lululemon one that goes
Oh,
around Lakeshore.
yeah, along the waterfront.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about doing that next year, actually.
Yeah, it's a really nice one, and you're seeing the water as you run. So,
Hmm.
oh, you have a question over here. Do you feel being on the spectrum motivates you to be the best you can be?
Well, yeah, without a doubt. Actually, so I was actually away from YouthSpeak for a little bit. I want to say maybe 3 years because I wanted to, focus on independent living, small things like that, right? And actually, I'm going back to I was working at the Muskoka Woods, and when it came to Bell Let's Talk, I'm always looking at creative ways to get my own story out there, actually. And there's a photo now. So I was talking to a guy who's really good at taking photos, and then I said, "Hey, I want to do something for Bell Let's Talk this year to get my story out. Um, can we chat here?" And one of the photos that we did was my hand was covered in my mouth like this, and on the top on my fingers here was anxiety, Asperger's, and depression. And on the back of my hand here was written more than my. So that really behind that message was, you're more than your anxiety, you're more than your depression, you're more than your autism or Asperger's or even Down syndrome as well.
That's absolutely beautiful. I love that message in itself. And that's such a powerful message to just give out to the youth and everyone is you're definitely more than your mental health, your mental illnesses, anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Actually, it did so well. Actually, it got maybe close to, I want to say, almost 500 shares.
that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You're like a mini celebrity here. So, yeah, so for all of you that have joined us throughout, thank you so much for watching and just interacting and asking questions. You can send in any last questions if you have any. And to recap our session, we've just been talking about some of the challenges Sean has faced and ways that he's truly overcome them and the resilience. So, some tips for parents and teachers is just a lot of it comes through the support, understanding, patience, and taking it one day at a time. So, and now I just want to give one more shout out to the TD Bank Group for supporting our online programming. And we'll see you next time for another Real Talk next Tuesday. Thank you, Sean, for joining
Yeah,
this discussion.
this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun and it was really inspiring just learning more about your story and your journey and everything you've been through.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye.
Have a good night.
Good night.